Today, the internet woke up to a headline nobody was prepared for, and within minutes, timelines were on fire. Fans are shocked, emotions ran high, and the reality TV world is once again split straight down the middle. New reports circulating online are claiming that Tamar Braxton's recent words may be pointing to a deeply personal conflict involving Mendeecees. One that goes far beyond the rumors fans thought they already understood. This is not a confirmed allegation. This is a developing commentary story. But the conversation alone has been explosive enough to change everything, according to multiple gossip blogs and reaction channels. Tamar's statements, when replayed and re-examined, have sparked a heated debate about what was really happening behind the scenes. Viewers say her tone felt heavy, her words sounded deliberate, and her pauses felt loaded. Fans immediately began asking why she emphasized choice, resistance, and determination so strongly. Why she spoke about standing firm, and why she repeatedly referenced wanting something for herself even when others may not have agreed. That's when the narrative shifted. Online commentary started suggesting that Tamar may have been responding to pressure, not confirming it. Not accusing anyone directly, but speaking from a place of emotional conflict. Reports claim that her words hinted at a disagreement over pregnancy, where she allegedly refused to give in and insisted on moving forward on her own terms. Suddenly, the internet wasn't just talking about rumors anymore. It was debating control, choice, and power dynamics. And then came the detail that sent shockwaves across fan communities. According to how viewers are interpreting the clips, Tamar's language suggested she wanted the baby to carry Mendeecees' name, a statement that some fans say adds an entirely new layer to the story. Timelines flooded with reactions. Some called it proof of emotional strength. Others saw it as heartbreaking defiance. And just as quickly, supporters rushed to defend Mendeecees, warning that interpretation is not confirmation. The family was left divided, at least in the court of public opinion. Reaction videos exploded overnight. Dialogue was dissected. Facial expressions were slowed down. Every word was weighed. And while no one has confirmed anything, the debate itself has taken on a life of its own. Fans are now asking the same question, over and over again. Were these just emotional reflections? Or was Tamar quietly telling a much bigger story without ever saying it outright? Because in reality TV, sometimes what isn't said speaks louder than anything else. And tonight, we're breaking down why this conversation erupted, how these reports started spreading, and why this story refuses to slow down. The conversation did not begin with a direct accusation. It began with interpretation. Clips resurfaced, words were replayed, and suddenly Tamar's past statements were being heard differently. According to circulating commentary online, her language carried a sense of resistance rather than agreement, a tone that suggested an internal battle rather than a mutual decision. Gossip pages were careful to frame it as discussion, not confirmation. But that distinction did little to slow the reaction. Fans are shocked not because something was proven, but because something felt implied. Viewers pointed out how Tamar spoke about standing her ground, about knowing what she wanted even when others disagreed. Those phrases became the center of debate. Reaction channels paused mid-sentence, rewound, and asked the same question repeatedly. Who is she talking about when she described pressure? What situation pushed her to emphasize choice so strongly? And why did these words feel more pointed now than when they were first said? The timing alone fueled speculation, especially as blogs began linking her comments to Mendeecees without claiming direct confirmation. Emotions ran high as fans took sides almost immediately. Some argued that Tamar was simply expressing personal strength, that reading anything more into her words was irresponsible. Others believed the emotional weight in her delivery suggested conflict that went beyond internal struggle. That split defined the early phase of the narrative. One side called it empowerment, the other called it resistance. Neither side claimed proof, yet both felt convinced by what they heard. As the discussion spread, reports began circulating that Tamar may have been referencing a disagreement over pregnancy choices. Again, no confirmation was offered. The language remained careful, filled with phrases like reportedly, allegedly, and according to online commentary. But even that cautious framing did not prevent escalation. Fans reacted to the idea itself, not its verification. The possibility that someone might feel urged toward a decision they did not want struck a nerve, especially given the public nature of the figures involved. Family dynamics quickly entered the conversation, at least through interpretation. Supporters of Mendeecees argued that speculation was unfair and harmful, pointing out that pressure can come from many directions, including media, career concerns, and personal fear. Others countered that when someone repeatedly emphasizes refusal and determination, it suggests an external force being resisted. The family was left divided in public perception, not because of statements made, but because of silence that followed. Dialogue clips were dissected further. Fans focused on moments where Tamar hesitated, where her voice softened, where she seemed to choose her words carefully. Some said it felt like she was protecting someone. Others believed she was protecting herself. That ambiguity became the driving force of the story. Nothing concrete was required for debate to grow. The uncertainty itself became content. Then came another detail that intensified the conversation. Viewers noted how Tamar referenced wanting the baby to have Mendeecees' name. For some, that line suggested hope for unity. For others, it felt like a declaration of intention, despite opposition. Blogs highlighted the phrase while stressing that interpretation varied. Still, timelines erupted. Fans argued over what it meant to insist on a name, whether it reflected confidence, attachment, or defiance. The meaning shifted depending on who was listening. Reaction videos leaned into emotion rather than evidence. Creators spoke about how public figures often communicate indirectly when topics are sensitive. They reminded audiences that silence and careful wording can be protective. At the same time, they acknowledged why viewers felt unsettled. Pregnancy choice and control are deeply personal subjects, and even the hint of disagreement invites strong reaction. The absence of clarity made the story feel unresolved, which only increased engagement. Friends and associates were pulled into speculation without saying a word. Fans watched who liked posts, who stayed quiet, who avoided the topic entirely. Every action was read as a signal. Silence was interpreted as strategy by some and discomfort by others. Whether those readings were accurate mattered less than how widely they spread. Once perception took hold, it shaped the narrative faster than facts ever could. Media coverage followed the same careful but charged tone. Articles emphasized that no allegation had been confirmed while still acknowledging why the discussion resonated. Writers focused on how Tamar framed her experience rather than what she explicitly claimed. That approach allowed the story to remain in circulation without crossing into definitive language. Readers were reminded repeatedly that this was commentary, not confirmation, yet the emotional impact remained strong. Fans continued to debate whether Mendeecees was being unfairly targeted or whether the conversation was overdue. Some argued that men in positions of influence are often scrutinized based on implication rather than action. Others believed that ignoring emotional signals perpetuates silence. The clash of perspectives kept comment sections active and intense. Every new post reignited the argument, even when it added no new information. Throughout all of this, Tamar's words remained the focal point. Not what she accused, but how she expressed herself. Supporters said her emphasis on refusal showed agency. Critics of the speculation warned against turning agency into accusation. Both sides claimed to be protecting her narrative, yet they arrived at opposite conclusions. That contradiction became the heart of the debate. As hours passed, the story began to feel larger than the individuals involved. It touched on broader themes of autonomy, interpretation, and how easily narratives form around incomplete information. Fans shared personal experiences, saying they recognized the language of pressure or the language of resolve. Those stories added emotional weight, even as they moved the conversation further from verifiable fact. What made the situation volatile was not evidence, but resonance. People heard what aligned with their own experiences and beliefs. Some felt validated by Tamar's words. Others felt alarmed by how quickly implication became assumption. The space between those reactions grew wider with each repost and reaction video by the time the discussion reached this stage. The narrative had settled into a familiar rhythm. No confirmations, no denials, just ongoing interpretation. Yet that was enough to sustain attention. Fans continued to ask why the conversation felt different now, why these words carried more weight than before. Many pointed back to timing, to how recent commentary reshaped context without adding new facts. In the end, the first phase of this story was defined by emotion rather than clarity. It was driven by how people felt listening to Tamar speak, not by what she explicitly said. And in the world of reality TV commentary, that distinction often blurs quickly. Perception begins to outweigh proof, and discussion takes on a life of its own, setting the stage for even deeper scrutiny as the narrative continues to unfold. As the debate grew louder, the focus slowly shifted from what Tamar said to why her words were resonating so strongly now. Commentators began pointing out that context changes everything. Statements that once felt emotional but ordinary were suddenly being filtered through a new lens, shaped by recent discussions and shifting public attention. Fans were not just listening anymore, they were searching. Searching for meaning, for intention, for signals hidden between sentences. Online reports emphasized that this was not about a direct claim being made, but about how Tamar framed her experience. Viewers highlighted moments where she spoke about making a choice despite resistance, about holding on to something that mattered deeply to her. Those lines became emotional anchors. Some fans said they sounded like empowerment. Others felt they reflected struggle. The difference in interpretation became impossible to ignore. Reaction channels fueled that divide. Creators replayed clips and asked hypothetical questions rather than making accusations. What if she was describing pressure without naming it? What if she chose silence to avoid backlash? What if she was simply recounting a difficult emotional moment without implicating anyone else? Each question opened a new path for speculation, and none of them required confirmation to feel compelling. Emotions ran high as supporters of both Tamar and Mendeecees grew more vocal. Those defending Mendeecees warned that reading intent into tone was dangerous. They argued that stress and fear can exist without external coercion. Others pushed back, saying that minimizing emotional cues has historically silenced people. The argument was no longer about facts. It was about belief systems and personal experiences. The family was left divided again in public perception. Fans watched for responses that never came. No clarifying statements. No direct denials. No confirmations. That silence became its own form of communication in the eyes of the internet. Some interpreted it as restraint. Others saw it as avoidance. Neither interpretation could be proven, but both gained traction. Blogs and entertainment pages carefully chose their language. Words like urged, refused, and wanted were used alongside disclaimers stressing that these were interpretations circulating online. Still, headlines spread quickly. Readers often absorb the emotional takeaway more than the cautionary framing. Once a narrative takes hold, nuance struggles to keep up. Discussion around the baby's name intensified the emotional layer of the story. Fans debated what it meant to want the child to carry Mendeecees' name despite alleged disagreement. Some saw it as a desire for unity or recognition. Others viewed it as a firm declaration of connection that could not be erased. That single detail became symbolic, representing either hope or defiance depending on perspective. Friends and fans weighed in indirectly, sharing posts about choice, strength, and motherhood. Even when not directly connected, these posts were pulled into the conversation as perceived signals. The internet has a way of assigning meaning where none is explicitly stated. Every post became potential context. Every quote became part of the puzzle. Reaction videos grew longer and more reflective. Creators spoke about how public figures often communicate carefully around sensitive topics. They reminded viewers that words can carry weight without carrying accusation. Yet they also acknowledged why the story felt unsettling. The idea that someone might feel pressured during such a personal moment resonated deeply. Regardless of confirmation, the debate expanded beyond the individuals involved and into broader conversations about autonomy and control. Fans discussed how power dynamics can exist even in private relationships, especially when fame and reputation are involved. Others countered that projecting those dynamics onto a situation without evidence can cause real harm. Both sides claimed to be advocating for fairness. As days passed, the conversation refused to settle. Even neutral observers found themselves pulled in, if only by the intensity of the reactions. The story had become less about events and more about interpretation, how people hear words, how timing reshapes meaning, how silence invites assumption. Media coverage mirrored that tension. Articles emphasized that no direct allegation had been made while still exploring why the discussion felt significant. Writers analyzed tone, phrasing, and emotional delivery rather than actions. This approach allowed the story to remain active without crossing into confirmation. Readers were left to decide what they believed. Mendeecees' absence from the conversation continued to shape perception. Supporters argued that silence was the responsible choice amid speculation. Critics felt that addressing the narrative could stop it from growing. Both arguments circulated widely, reinforcing polarization. The lack of clarity allowed each side to strengthen its own interpretation. Throughout all of this, Tamar remained at the center, not because of new statements, but because of old ones being re-examined. Her words became a mirror for the audience. People saw their own experiences reflected back, whether of pressure, resilience, or misunderstanding. That personal connection gave the story emotional longevity. The tension between empathy and evidence became more pronounced. Some viewers felt that emotional truth mattered even without factual confirmation. Others insisted that without proof, speculation should stop. Neither side fully persuaded the other. Instead, the debate itself became the driving force of engagement. As the narrative evolved, it became clear that this phase was about momentum. Once a story reaches this level of emotional investment, it no longer needs new information to survive. Interpretation feeds reaction. Reaction feeds coverage. Coverage feeds further interpretation. The cycle sustains itself. What began as commentary on language had transformed into a larger discussion about how narratives form in real time. Tamar's words had not changed, but the world listening to them had. Timing, context, and collective emotion reshaped meaning without adding facts. That shift marked a turning point, pushing the story deeper into public consciousness. And as attention continued to build, the question was no longer whether anything would be confirmed, but whether confirmation was even necessary for the narrative to keep moving forward. With the narrative gaining momentum, tension began drifting toward how quickly interpretation had replaced patience. Fans were no longer waiting for clarification. They were constructing meaning in real time, layering assumption onto emotion. Clips were no longer shared as context, but as proof of whatever side the viewer already believed. Once that shift happened, the story entered a more volatile phase. Online debates grew sharper. Supporters of Tamar argued that her words reflected lived experience, not speculation. They said the strength in her refusal mattered regardless of who was involved. Others insisted that strength does not automatically point to pressure from another person. They warned that turning emotional storytelling into implied accusation risked distorting reality. Neither group backed down. Emotions ran high, and nuance was often lost in the noise. The language used by gossip pages became increasingly influential. Phrases like urged, refused, and stood her ground carried emotional charge even when paired with disclaimers. Readers often absorbed the implication faster than the caution. Headlines traveled faster than explanations, and by the time clarification appeared, opinions were already formed. The speed of social media left little room for reflection. Fans began reconstructing timelines. They compared interviews, dates, and appearances, trying to find continuity or contradiction. Moments that once seemed unrelated were stitched together into a broader story. A pause here, a careful phrase there. Each detail was treated as intentional. The idea that someone might simply choose words carefully without hidden meaning became harder to defend in such a charged environment. Discussion about the baby's name continued to fuel emotional interpretation. Some viewers believed it showed Tamar's desire for stability and acknowledgement. Others felt it symbolized determination in the face of disagreement. That single detail carried disproportionate weight, becoming a focal point for arguments about intention and agency. Blogs highlighted it repeatedly, knowing it resonated deeply with audiences. Friends and fans of both sides tried to redirect the conversation. Some posted messages about respecting privacy and avoiding speculation. Others shared content about empowerment and choice. Even those attempts were absorbed into the narrative, interpreted as subtle endorsements or rejections of the circulating claims. Nothing existed in isolation anymore. Reaction videos reflected this complexity. Creators spoke more cautiously, aware of the seriousness of the subject. Many reminded viewers that commentary is not confirmation, yet they continued to analyze tone and delivery, acknowledging that emotional cues can matter even without explicit statements. That balance kept viewers engaged while maintaining plausible distance from accusation. As the debate widened, it intersected with broader conversations about reproductive autonomy. Viewers shared personal stories explaining how pressure can feel invisible to outsiders. Others shared experiences of being misunderstood when expressing anxiety or fear. These stories added depth but also blurred lines between empathy and projection. The more personal the discussion became, the harder it was to separate one situation from another. Mendeecees' role remained defined by absence. His silence continued to be interpreted in conflicting ways. Supporters said engaging would legitimize speculation. Critics argued that addressing the narrative could calm it. Both interpretations circulated widely, reinforcing division. Silence became a canvas onto which audiences projected their beliefs. Media coverage adapted to this phase by focusing on reaction rather than event. Articles discussed how fans were responding, how the debate had grown, and why the story resonated emotionally. This approach allowed outlets to cover the controversy without asserting facts. The story became about the conversation itself, not what actually happened. The family was left divided in public perception once again. Some fans expressed concern for everyone involved, urging restraint. Others demanded accountability, even if only in the form of explanation. Comment sections reflected this split clearly. Empathy and suspicion existed side by side, rarely overlapping. What stood out was how quickly certainty formed without evidence. Once viewers decided what Tamar's words meant, opposing interpretations felt wrong rather than different. That rigidity intensified conflict. Discussions turned heated with accusations of bias and insensitivity thrown in both directions. The original words were almost secondary to the emotional investment they triggered. Analysts pointed out that this pattern is common in reality TV culture. Audiences are trained to read between the lines to expect hidden meaning. When public figures speak carefully, viewers assume there is something to hide. That expectation shapes interpretation before facts ever enter the conversation. As days passed, the narrative stabilized into a familiar rhythm. No new information emerged, yet engagement remained high. Each repost reignited debate. Each reaction video drew fresh commentary. The absence of resolution became part of the appeal. Unanswered questions kept people watching. Tamar's words continued to act as the anchor, not because they changed, but because the context around them did. What once sounded reflective now sounded charged. Timing reshaped perception without altering content. That shift illustrated how narratives can evolve independently of events. Some viewers began expressing fatigue. They questioned how long speculation could continue without substance. Others argued that conversation itself has value, especially around sensitive topics. Both perspectives gained traction, creating another layer of debate layered onto the original one. Through all of this, the line between commentary and conclusion grew thinner. Even as disclaimers remained, emotional framing guided interpretation. People felt something, and feeling often outweighed caution. The story persisted not because of facts, but because of resonance. By this stage, the controversy had become a mirror reflecting audience, values, and experiences. Those who believed Tamar's words hinted at pressure felt validated by their intuition. Those who rejected that idea felt compelled to defend against what they saw as unfair implication. The clash was less about truth and more about perspective. As attention continued, it became clear that this phase was defined by polarization. Empathy competed with skepticism. Silence competed with expectation. Interpretation competed with restraint. The narrative did not move forward in clarity, but it deepened in emotion, holding the audience in place as the conversation continued to unfold, as the discussion carried on. The emotional weight surrounding the story began to shift yet again. What started as interpretation slowly transformed into expectation. Fans were no longer just debating what Tamar's words meant, they were anticipating what would happen next. Would someone speak up? Would there be clarification? Or would silence continue to let the narrative grow unchecked? That anticipation kept the story alive even without new material. Online spaces reflected that tension clearly. Comment sections became places of projection, where people imagined outcomes rather than waiting for information. Some believed Tamar would eventually explain herself more openly. Others felt that no explanation was coming, that her words were meant to stand on their own. This divide deepened emotional investment. People chose sides not based on facts, but on belief about intent. The tone of reaction content changed subtly during this phase. Creators began discussing the cost of public storytelling. They talked about how once words are released, control over interpretation disappears. Tamar's statements were no longer hers alone. They belonged to the audience, shaped by personal experience, bias, and emotion. That loss of control became a quiet theme running through the coverage. Fans continued to analyze language with intense focus. They revisited phrases about refusal and determination, debating whether those words described a private disagreement or an internal struggle. Some argued that refusing something implies it was requested by someone else. Others countered that refusal can also mean rejecting fear or doubt. Both interpretations felt plausible, which kept the debate unresolved. The baby's name remained a powerful symbol in the conversation. It was discussed less as a factual detail and more as an emotional statement. Supporters saw it as an assertion of connection and dignity. Skeptics saw it as a detail being overinterpreted. Still, the repetition of that point across blogs and videos reinforced its importance in the narrative. Symbolism often carries more weight than confirmation. As time went on, Concern grew about how narratives solidify without evidence. Some viewers expressed discomfort with how implication had begun to feel like accusation. They warned that once a story hardens in public memory, even clarification may not undo its impact. Others responded that conversations about pressure and choice should not be silenced simply because they are uncomfortable. This clash reflected a deeper disagreement about responsibility in storytelling. Media outlets leaned further into analysis of reaction rather than origin. Articles focused on how fans were responding, how divided opinions had become, and why the topic resonated culturally. This approach allowed the story to persist without new claims. The focus was no longer on what happened, but on what people believed might have happened and why that belief mattered. Mendeecees remained a central figure through absence alone. Supporters continued to argue that silence was a protective measure, not an admission. Critics maintained that addressing speculation could prevent misunderstanding. Neither side shifted. The lack of resolution allowed both arguments to coexist, reinforcing the sense of stalemate that defined this phase. Tamar, meanwhile, was increasingly framed through empathy. Many fans expressed concern for her emotional well-being, regardless of interpretation. They spoke about how difficult it must be to see personal words debated endlessly. Others worried that empathy was turning into narrative assumption. Tension highlighted how easily care can blur into certainty in online spaces. The story also sparked broader reflection among viewers. Discussions expanded to how society listens to women speaking about personal experiences. Some argued that subtle language is often the only safe way to express conflict. Others warned that assuming hidden meaning can unfairly implicate others. Both perspectives drew from lived experience, which made compromise difficult. As engagement continued, the controversy took on a cyclical nature. Moments of quiet were followed by renewed bursts of attention whenever a clip resurfaced or a new reaction video appeared. Each resurgence reignited the same debates, rarely adding new insight but reinforcing existing positions. A repetition did not resolve confusion, it deepened it. Some fans began questioning their own reactions. They asked whether they were responding to what was said or to how the story was framed. This self-reflection appeared in longer comments and discussion threads. Still, those voices were often drowned out by more definitive takes. Certainty travels faster than doubt. Analysts pointed out that this pattern is common when stories touch on deeply personal issues. Emotion accelerates interpretation. Once people feel something strongly, they seek narratives that validate that feeling. Tamar's words became a canvas for that process. Different audiences painted different meanings onto the same sentences. Through all of this, one fact remained unchanged. There was no confirmation of any claim, no direct statement accusing anyone of urging anything. Everything existed in the space of commentary, reaction, and belief. Yet that space proved powerful enough to sustain weeks of conversation and intense scrutiny. By this stage, the narrative had evolved into something larger than the initial discussion. It became a conversation about how stories are formed, how silence is interpreted, and how easily public opinion can harden around incomplete information. The individuals involved were still at the center, but the themes had expanded beyond them. Some viewers expressed a desire for closure, not necessarily confirmation, but clarity. Others felt that closure might never come, and that the conversation itself was the point. Both perspectives highlighted a key truth about reality TV culture. Uncertainty often keeps audiences more engaged than answers. As the discussion continued, it was clear that, whatever the truth might be, perception had already shifted. Tamar's words would not be heard the same way again. Mendeecees' silence would continue to invite interpretation. The audience, once passive, had become an active force shaping meaning. In the end, this phase of the story was defined by unresolved tension, not between people, but between interpretation and restraint, between empathy and evidence. between what was said and what was heard. That tension held the narrative in place, suspended and emotionally charged, ensuring that even without new developments, the conversation would not fade quietly. Now, it's your turn to step into this conversation. You've heard how these reports started circulating. You've seen how Tamar's words were replayed, reinterpreted, and pulled into a much bigger debate. And you've watched how one discussion turned into a full-blown news cycle driven by emotion, timing, and perception rather than confirmation. But the biggest question is still sitting with you. How? Did you hear Tamar's words? Did they sound like strength and determination to you? Or did they feel like someone pushing back against pressure that couldn't be named out loud? Do you think the internet is reading too deeply into emotional language, or do you believe subtle wording can say more than direct accusations ever could? And when it comes to silence, do you see it as protection, or does it leave too much room for assumption? This story has divided fans in a way that's hard to ignore. Some believe this is an important conversation about choice, voice, and autonomy. Others feel it's a dangerous example of speculation growing faster than facts. Both sides are passionate, both sides are emotional, and both sides are shaping how this narrative continues to evolve. That's why your perspective matters. Drop your thoughts in the comments and tell us how you interpret what's happening. Do you think these circulating claims are being misunderstood? Or do you feel there's something deeper being communicated beneath the surface? Do you believe public figures owe clarity in moments like this? Or is privacy still more important than public curiosity? If you found this breakdown helpful and want to stay updated as this story develops, make sure you like this video and subscribe to the channel. Turn on notifications so you don't miss any new reports, reactions, or shifts in the conversation as they happen. We'll continue following the commentary, separating what's being claimed from what's actually confirmed and breaking down how narratives like this take shape in real time. Until then, keep the discussion respectful, keep an open mind, and remember that in stories like this, what people hear can sometimes become just as powerful as what was actually said.